Hello, everybody. My name is Nicholas, and I am also known as Nick. I am her editor, and today we are actually going to be showing you guys what goes into making an episode for CaFae Latte. A lot of people have been putting in requests of like, how long does it actually take you? It varies, so I will take you along in the journey of how I make stuff for Christina. We're hoping to make future videos of me doing stuff for VFX work and the sound effects like Bob's curse voice. So yeah, we'll just head right into it. Just the introduction of the basic steps. I first set up the editing space, like in here, remove the background static. We'll get into that. Color code the characters, color correct and color grade, do the first cut, the rough cut, and then the final cut. But yeah, we're gonna step right into this. I already have my workspace set up. Uh, the best word of advice if you ever get into editing, set up and organize your workflow so you can find stuff easier. I've seen so many people that I've worked with where just like, oh, I just have all this stuff slammed into one spot. It's whatever. And it's like, no, it's not whatever. Put things where you can find things. Uh, so I've kind of set up. I usually break down the clips into sequences, and then so we're on June 18th. So I break the thing up into three specific things. The June box, the timeline that I'm going to be working in, and then the final. So usually the first thing I do is I go into my window and I'm going to add essential sound to my stuff here. Makes it a little bit easier to, when Christina's stuff comes in,
Good night, everyone.
kind of has a hiss in the background.
Good night, everyone. Drive safe.
So I like to go in and add a filter that I call TikTok main that basically reduces the background noise, reduces the rumble that's happening wherever it is, de-essing, because S's tend to have sharp sounds when you're doing sound things. Don't sound very professional, I apologize. But then I add a equalizer preset called vocal present. It makes her more prominent than the background. And then now you can kind of,
Good night, everyone. Drive safe.
it just makes her voice stronger.
Anything else, Bob?
And yes, the microphone that I got her was kind of for me, but it was also for her and for people that have a hard time listening to things. So I got that part set up. And then the next step that I go through is I find where she's cut her characters. So I just kind of scroll through here to find where she is. I forgot how long this clip was. Here we go. Now I'm just kind of going through the keyframes just to find where she stops and it switches. There we go, goes to Bob. So then I cut this here, and then the part that I talked about earlier was color coding them. So she is more of a pink from what we've set up for Husnia. So that way I can tell who is who when I'm cutting stuff together and get all the clips the way that I need them to be. And then with Bob, I go through and label her as Violet. So then I go through and make sure that all of them are color coded. For this one, it's rather easy because there's just two characters. So that makes it relatively easy on my part. Then the next part that I go into is I'm going to pull this up again, go back to my workspaces, and I'm going to select color grade. So we're going to go into the Lumetri color, and what I kind of do first, well, you want to find, there's a thing on here called white balance. You want to tell the camera what's white. It's better to do it on the camera, but because we have smartphones, they're just like, we're going to do whatever we want. So I'm going to select this dropper. Come on. let's do the dropper thingy. There we go. So it's basically right now, lots of fun colors. I got to find something that's close to white. So this is what I'm telling the computer is white. So, it's adding more orange and it's adding more green to the tones so that way it pops out more. Turn that off, turn that back on. So then from there, I've noticed that a lot of her colors tend to be a lot more harsh, so I desaturate it by like 10% to make it where it's not as blinding. In here, then I do a thing called crushing the blacks, which is taking this area down here and telling the computer that, hey, this is black and it's not black enough. So if you look over here, you'll see the apron do more blackness and stuff. So I'm going to bring it down just to the 0 because I don't want to do it too far. It's only 0.2, but it makes a difference. Then the whites, I'm going to bring up just a little bit, so that way it's brightening it here. And then you always want to try to have it underneath this line here, otherwise you're going to deal with a blown out image. And then shadows are the area that's in between, I believe, the 50 and down. So shadows, usually for these characters, I bring it down to make the color pop a little bit more. And then I bring up the highlights, which is bringing up the whiter side of that. And then contrast, you can make it more colorful, or not as strong. I've found that a happy medium is just a tad down. Then I go into creative, and I've found that these are all like different color tones. So like, hey, if you really like the movie Drive, you can use this and put it into there. If you really like The Godfather, you can make it look like The Godfather, and it does all the work for you, which is really cool. For like the night shots that I've done, I've tweaked this. I've used SL Blue Day for Night, and then tweaked it to where it's either darker or not as prominent, but it still looks like it's night out. I usually use neutral, and I choose 65%. You can turn it off and see the difference that it does. At least to me, it does. And then from there, I go over and do the same thing to Bob. Now the next step is to make these two match. This one's brighter, this one's darker. I think I'm going to go with Bob, and I'm going to choose comparison view. And basically, here's the reference, the image that I want. I want her looking up more. There we go. Then I'm going to go over and select this one, and then apply match. And now it's a little bit brighter and matches a little bit more to Bob. I'm going to bring this one down a little bit and tweak this one a little bit and bring it up. There we go. And go back to our twin line. Just kind of showing a before and after, without, with, without, with. And then we go into the actual cutting of stuff. And then I'm going to unmute this one. And I'll show you kind of like what I had done in this one, I basically grab the clips that are up here and off to the side over here, I have Christina's script up. When you get into editing, it things kind of, after you've done it a while, it just kind of makes sense of where you do your cuts. When I'm doing my first cut, I am put stuff down in the timeline into a rougher fashion of what I'm trying to find. Granted, these cuts are not going to be the exact same of what I did. I try to get to the parts where she is looking up at the camera and doing her bit there. So this one, you'll see she thought that this was just the only line. Probably did. And realizes that she missed the rest of it. So when that happens, I have a separate timeline called bloopers. Sometimes when I'm editing, I'm giving my own commentary. I'm like, hey, this is a great line. Or, Christina, I wish you would have made this a little bit longer because then I can actually do stuff in the rough or final cut. Or Jackie, when they're doing their voice stuff, is like, I wish you made this a little bit longer. And you just held that look for 2 seconds more. So this is what I call the first cut. A rough draft of everything just put on the timeline. What Christina and I call the rough cut, which is going in and just trimming everything down to what should be turned into. So like, I'm going to make this thing smaller. I'm going to go in and cut off several frames here because she's looking at the computer. So I'm just going to bring it down, and I try to do it right when they're like opening their mouth. Good night, everyone. Drive safe. And then this is the more tedious part of just kind of going in and cutting everything down. Usually I can tell when she's about to start talking because right there on this part, the microphone caught that she opened her mouth to actually start talking. So usually I try to do it after. Oh, it was delightful. So after like trimming everything down, if I really like something, I'll like, oh, this person has a really good reaction. I'm going to put this on top over here so we can actually see the conversation that's happening, interacting with between the two. The part that I like that I added in the rough cut personally is, thank you to Shenanigans to telling me, hey, which one is this thing? Because I don't remember in one of the first episodes of just like, hey, we're going to take over the country. Christina approved that idea and I pulled it in. I want to do that more often to like reference stuff from the past. That one I added a color grade onto it to make it black and white using a black and white film. And then I added something called film damage. Turn that off, turn it on to make it kind of like a old-timey film. And then from there, I export it and send it off to Christina, and she goes through and cleans up the edits to what she actually wants if she feels that the timing needs to be a little bit better. So when she's doing that, usually she can get it back and turned around within a half hour. Then I go through and start doing the first initial cut of the lines. So I'll usually copy paste. I'm going to actually pull up the caption thing here quick. Caption and graphics, and it has a special setup for all of that. So you can see the lines that are in here that people have said. So I'll usually copy paste it from the document that she did, and then I scroll through and try to find the parts. So usually the first go through is figuring out what specific lines they're saying. once we get into the final cut, then is when I go in and add the different layer styles, as you can see here. We have the witch, we have Toothy, we have all of these other ones. And Christina wanted colors to be associated with the different characters. So like with Husnia, we have this. I can make it stronger. I can make it weaker. I can make the spread, make it the drop shadow drop down further, which that looks annoying. So I'm just going to not do that. I can make it wider to make it look like there's a lot of it, but and then I can make it kind of have more like a glow. But a lot of people really didn't like the glow, so I've just kind of found that this formula is the best that works, at least to my knowledge. And usually I'll assign all these different ones in the final cut. So I'm going to go back to the workspace here, back to twin lining. If there's still at least a lot of prominent noise in the background, I'll go into my Audition software, which is specifically for sound, open that up, drop this whole thing in from the final, which is grabbing this, and then telling it to edit clip in the Audition, and then find an area of silence and then make it sound less like a problem.
Good night, everyone. Drive safe. Good night, everyone. Drive safe.
This is when I go in and chop up all of the bits. So like you saw in this one, it's like, good night, everybody. Drive safe. Anything else, Bob? Go into the final and you see that there is.
Good night, everyone. Drive safe. Anything else, Bob?
Cutting in between the lines. So I'll usually do that in the final version of it. Then I add the sound design part. So I'm going to actually pull that down. And then she usually annotates somewhere on the script that's off to the side how busy the cafe is, how slow it is. She put that this was after closing. So I have made a lot of different sequences that have the different sounds. Quiet back of house. This is early in the morning and there's transactions on here. I can just grab a couple clips from there. This is when it's busy in the back of the house and they're doing dishes. There's cafe sounds, cash transaction, the stuff that happened at the Coven. They're different houses. I don't remember which one I picked actually. I think it was back of house when it was just like dead. And then I open that one, go like this, copy, paste, and then it drops it in there. Obviously I picked something else because I don't remember. So I'm going to actually get rid of this, just the talking. And you can kind of hear during the final, I'll actually go through and trim the audio and be like, hey, this needs to be louder. This needs to be quieter. On average, you want your voice, like the people talking, you want that in between -12 and -6. If it goes above 0, you're going to have your stuff clip and it just sounds horrible. And then anything background is usually between 12 and 18 or lower. Music, they say that should be between 12 and 18 or lower. This is usually where I do all my VFX work for like Rithu's eyes, because I know what stuff she's cut. I don't want to do extra work of longer frames of things. But usually I have to go through and be like, I got to find it and then cut it and then do this and then do that. Cue credits. And the exportation process usually takes anywhere from however long it was. Sometimes it's like, oh, this will be done in like 3 minutes. And other times, like with the long Friday videos, Friday, Saturday videos, it's like, oh, this is going to take 20 minutes. patiently waiting for things to be done so that way I can go to work and have it upload to the drive so I don't have to worry. It's like, nope, it's still exporting. Sometimes I get home after a long shift and it's still exporting. I'm like, oh my gosh, what is wrong with you? So if I'm doing something big, I usually just shut down and restart my computer so it starts out fresh. And then from there, I drop it into the Google Chrome drive, and then she adds the little things on the top: he, him, she, her, character names, etc. So yeah, that's pretty much a short version of what I kind of do for Christina. It doesn't look like a lot, but it becomes a lot in the end. Especially if I'm doing VFX work. So I've thoroughly enjoyed working for Christina, and I hope to continue to work for her. Yes, please. But yeah, that's kind of what I do with this, and most of the time I'm doing it after work or on my days off, like on Tuesdays. Let me go back to the edit part, and yeah, this is the absolute final. We go through all the stuff. But yeah, if you guys have any questions or want to know more or want to see any specific effects of how I do them and kind of do a tutorial on that, or just show you, hey, this is what goes into it, like this video, I'm happy to do that, and let us know what you want to see more of. But I'll just kind of give you my closing remarks of things. This is what I do. I enjoy it. I'm rambling. But to all of Christina's lovelies, we'll see you on the flip side.